Hi, everyone, and welcome to lesson 5. So, this lesson is all about the collection process. So, in lesson 4, we talked about how smart notes were atomic units. We discussed what they were, and we talked about the first steps that you would actually take in collecting your smart notes. So, this phase is the collection phase. This is the first of our 4 phases that make up our academic writing process. So, I just wanted to remind you once again that in order to make smart notes the super smart time traveling wizards that they will become, many more things are going to happen in the other sessions. But this is a very important session. So, in the last session, like I said, we learned the basics for taking smart notes. And since we have lots more work to do on these smart notes over the next few sessions, we need to figure out the quickest and easiest way to get them from where we have them, which is either on our Kindles, in the margins of our books, on PDFs, etc., into a standardized form in Rome. So, in this lesson, we're going to be talking about a few tools that are essential to the collection process. We're going to be talking about tools throughout the course, but these two are very important tools in my academic arsenal and should be in yours. And so we need to talk about the tools themselves and a few tweaks that we need to make to these tools for them to function as we would like them to function. So, first things first, what are the lesson goals for this particular lesson? In this lesson, we are going to establish a fixed process for getting your initial smart notes into Rome. And the result will be a collection of smart notes in a standard format, organized by source, ready and waiting to be worked on during the next sessions of our classical note taking process. Okay, so let's talk about the tools first. The first tool I want to talk to you about is called AnyStyle.io. In Because this lesson is about collecting notes, I'm going to assume that you already have your own process for collecting the sources that you are going to read, and you're going to do that within a bibliographic tool. And I'm assuming that you're keeping these unread, or unused sources in the bibliographic tool Zotero, since what that is what we're going to use throughout this course. So I just wanted to introduce you to a nifty little tool that I found. I used to present this as a direct import to Rome, but I have changed my process and I'm very, very stingy on the content that I actually allow to come into Rome. I use AnyStyle.io now not to bring sources directly into Rome, but to bring sources into my Zotero. So let me quickly show you what that's all about. So here we are in AnyStyle.io. And again, this is not necessarily a tool you're going to need for Rome, but it's just a really great academic tool in general. So I wanted to show it to you. So what AnyStyle.io does for you is it allows you to quickly take a bibliography from a paper that you are reading and get it into your bibliography tool. This is useful because if you're reading a paper and there's perhaps 35 different resources, you don't want to go through one of them each at a time and import them into bibliography. So this does that for you. So this is how it works. You'll see I'm on AnyStyle.io right now, and there is what is called a parse window. And if I go over to my Zotero and I open one of the PDFs and I say, okay, I think I want all of these references. I'm just going to take a portion now for the purpose of showing this to you, but I'm going to take these references, I'm going to copy them, and then I'm going to head over to AnyStyle.io, and I'm just going to paste them in here, and I'm going to ask AnyStyle.io to parse these references. So you'll see what it's done is it's broken down that reference into the elements that you need to enter it into a bibliographic tool. And if you are using Zotero, it's very easy to just go ahead and save them in a bibtex file, which then you can just upload to Zotero. So I thought I'd show you that because it's a very useful tool. But it's not a tool we're going to use with Rome. We're going to talk about those right now. So, the first Roam tool that I want to talk to you about that we use extensively in academic writing is called Readwise. I'm sure that most of you have heard of Readwise, and if you did watch any of the beta lessons, you'll see in the original course that I didn't use Readwise very much. That's because it had a few things missing, and I'm very happy to say that it has nothing missing now. It has improved to the point where it has replaced almost all of my collection tools. So let's take a look at Readwise. There's some advantages and some disadvantages. So, one of the advantages is that it completely automates your process. So, as you collect notes and you feed them into Readwise, Readwise will load them into Roam without you even thinking about it. I love it when I wake up in the morning and I open my Roam page and Readwise has imported everything that I did yesterday. And sometimes that happens during the day as well. So, before the end of the day, all of a sudden I'll see all of my notes from that day just imported by Readwise. So automation is something we always go for. Automation is key, and Readwise gives you that capability. The second advantage of Readwise is I get a lot of questions around legacy data. So I get a lot of questions from people who say, I've already taken a lot of notes, and what can I do to get them into Rome? And to be honest, apart from cutting and pasting, which is a fine way of getting yourself into Rome, the best way I've found for getting old notes in that haven't been collected in the ways we're about to discuss is through the Readwise CSV capabilities. And we're going to go into Readwise and I'm going to show you what those are. The third advantage of Readwise IO is that it gives you spaced repetition capabilities. Now, it gives you spaced repetition capabilities outside of Roam, and some people really would like those capabilities inside of Roam. I'm quite happy to leave them outside of Roam because I put so much through Readwise, not just my academic work, that I love it that I can go to a different application, leave Roam, give my brain a break and do some spaced repetition. So if you don't understand what spaced repetition is, we're going to talk about that when we quickly review Readwise. The disadvantages of Readwise is that it costs money. However, they do have an academic pricing plan, which comes out to I think $50 or $60 a year. And I'm going to tell you that it is going to be one of the best investments you're going to make in your academic note taking process. So I would highly encourage you to find the money to invest in Readwise. Let's take a look at what makes it so special. So here we are in Readwise IO, and Readwise IO is an application that allows you to link up different sources through which you are going to load your notes, and it will automatically load it into Roam Research. One of the things I mentioned about the advantages of Readwise IO was the daily was spaced repetition, and that happens in your daily review. So you can even do this on your phone. You can set Readwise IO up to send you your daily review to your phone. And what the daily review will do is it will take all of your smart blocks, everything you've entered into Readwise IO, even if you don't keep it into Roam, which is important to me because I don't keep everything in Roam, and it will bring them up for you to take a look at them. And then when you look at them, you can either discard them, tell them that you want to master that and have it come back regularly, provide feedback as to when to make sure that that highlight comes back up again, and also just keep. And then there's several other options that you can do when you're doing spaced repetition. So you can tag it so that you can recognize it in your tags. You can make it a favorite so it appears more often, and you can also share it, which will put it onto a little cute little card so you can put it on Twitter. That maybe is not so interesting to you, but it could be. So that's the first advantage of Readwise IO. The second one we talked about was the ability to import through a CSV. So if you will see here, when we go to import, you'll see all the different ways that you can get information into Readwise IO, which will then bring it into your Roam. So you'll see my connections are I bring information in through Kindle. I have Pocket on here, but I actually review in Pocket before I bring it into Readwise IO, so I don't really use that. I bring it into Readwise IO through Twitter, through Medium, and through hypothesis, which is another one of our key tools that we'll use a lot that you should have seen in the prior video. So the other ways that you can bring in Readwise IO information is through all of these options here. This is a Mac-based iPod podcast listener, so that's really an advantage. This is a web highlighter. I prefer Hypothesis, and we're going to talk about that later. And then when we discuss the CSV import, here it is. So what you can do is you can actually just download all of your notes into a CSV spreadsheet, and then you can import them back into Readwise IO. We're also going to be talking about PDF imports. I use this as well. And there is a way to save highlights on paper books as well. This is not my favorite way, although it is an option. So have a look in here and explore all the different ways that you can link up. And we're going to go through them as we go through this lesson. But primarily what you need to do in Readwise IO is you need to set up your exports. So if you go back to the home page that we were just on, you'll see there's the import connections and then there's the export connections. So we want to make sure that you're set up to export to Roam. So after you open your Readwise IO account, you click on export and you'll see that I used to have it, I still do, but I don't use Evernote anymore. This was when I very first started. I had a lot of notes in Evernote. Don't use that anymore. Don't use Notion. I only use Roam. So when you go to your Roam export, click on configure. What it will do is it will bring up a configure page where you can decide how you want your exports to come into Roam. I like to have them exported automatically. I like to include highlight locations, which is page numbers, and I do use custom formatting. And I'm going to explain that to you right now. So what you'll see on the left-hand side of the page is the information that you can bring in to Readwise IO as the header of the page when it takes the notes. Okay, so it will take notes for you and then it will create a page in Roam using the title of the source that you've collected from. So what I have done here is I have basically just replicated the header that I want on sources that come in through Readwise IO and set it up so that it always comes in the same way. Now, I want to point something out to you very importantly right now. I use Roam and Readwise IO for every single project that I work on. So this section here is actually irrelevant. What I have done here is irrelevant to you guys. And that is because in the process that we use, you're going through Zotero and importing the bibliographic detail from Zotero. So you won't need this. So unless you're like me, don't set this up. If you're like me, set this up so that when it comes in, you can decide whether you want to delete it or keep it. The reason why I have reconcile up here, and this is going to be important to you, is that when something comes in through Readwise IO, I want to make sure that I know whether or not I have connected it to the source that came in from Zotero. So we're going to talk about that later on in the process, but this setup piece is very important for the future of the process. So this piece is important, this piece is not so important, and of course, this is just showing you the way that the Readwise highlights come in, and you'll see that later on. So you can actually go through and play with this. I'm not going to go through all the different options that there are because it's very, very personal to you. So you can go in and decide exactly how you want it to look. The only thing I'm going to ask that you do is in your page title right here on the left-hand side, include the page reconcile so that we can use that in our process. So that's Readwise IO. We're going to see it a little bit more as we move forward, but start to get familiar with the interface. It's something very valuable for your processes. So let's talk about Zotero. In one of the earlier lessons, I told you that there were two add-ons that you needed to add to Zotero in order to be able to make Rome function as the key place that you are writing within, because that helps with the exporting. But in order to collect, there's also another add-on that we need to add into Zotero. So the way that you do add-ons is you just go to each of the URLs that I have provided you with here, and then one by one download the particular package that goes with that particular add-on feature. And then it's very simple. In Zotero, you simply go to add-ons, and then it allows you to choose a new add-on to put into your Zotero package. So that's quite simple. So after you have added on all of your Zotero files, there's one more thing that you need to do, and it's a little bit complicated. It's not complicated, but it's a little bit finicky. So I wanted to make sure that we just covered it clearly in this lesson. So we're adding on the Zotero to Rome. These two we won't need necessarily until we get to the exporting piece. But the Zotero to Rome is going to be very important during the collection phase, because what that does is it allows us to use Zotero as the staging place. So no information gets into Rome until we're ready to deal with it. And what we need to do is make sure Zotero can export to Rome neatly and cleanly and have it in a format that is consistent and standardized and usable. In order to do that, we need Zotero to use the site key, which Better BibTeX is going to set up for us when we import our sources into Zotero, as the page name for Rome. And the reason why this is important is because later on in the exporting, it is that site key slash page name that becomes the link that helps us automatically generate the references in Rome. So this piece is very important. So the one change you need to make after you have added all of these in, there's one change you need to make for this, and that is to tell it to change the site key. So the way you do that is you go to Zotero, and you choose Zotero Preferences, and then you click on the Advanced button, and then you click on Config Editor. You accept the risk that you might fault your warranty. And then what you're looking for is use title as site key. So if you do a search for site key, you're probably going to find it easily. There it is, right on the top. Extensions dot Rome export dot site key as title. When you go into your preferences after you have added this onto your Zotero, this value will say false. So all you need to do is type into this, double click on this line, and it will revert to true. So you want that to say true. Once it says true, you're fine. You can close this down and you're on to the next step. So here we are. We are in the collect space, and we're going to take a look at the collect process. There are two pieces to the collect process. There is the actual Zotero Daily Notes collect piece, and then there is the notes collect piece, and we're going to go through both. So first things first, the result that you want to get out of this collect process is you want a collection of smart notes in a standard format, organized by source, ready and waiting to be worked on during the next sessions of our magical note-taking process. So let's take a look first at the graphic for part one. So part one is setup, getting your sources set up. And this is what that looks like. We'll talk through it and then we'll go through all of the details. So when you are about to use a source, when you are about to start taking notes on something, so this is in your daily notes page, we're going to go through that in a minute. The first question you ask yourself is this source in Zotero? If the source is not in Zotero, then obviously the next thing you need to do is enter it into Zotero. If it is in Zotero, the next question you ask yourself is this source in Rome? If the answer is no, you need to import the source to Rome using Zotero, which I'm going to show you in a moment, and then run the source smart block, which I'm also going to show you in a moment. If the source is in Rome, you need to identify on the daily notes page that you are about to work on that source, and you are going to set the source status to active, and then it moves you straight into the second part of the collection process. So you can print this form out, this process out, and use it to guide you until you get very comfortable with what you are doing. So let's talk this through. First question you're going to ask yourself is the source in Zotero? If it isn't, you all know how to enter a source into a bibliographic tool. I hope you can just use a Chrome add-in extension, and that will allow you just to click on it and it will add it automatically. If it is in Zotero, the next question is it in Rome? If it is not, we need to import it. So let's take a quick look at how we would do that. So here we are within our Zotero. You're seeing my little mini trial Zotero that I created just for this course. And let's say I would like to get this particular article into my Rome database. It's very simple. All I do is I right click on the article. I move down to this particular item right here, which will show up in your menu after you import the add-on, and click Export Items to Rome. What it will do is it will ask you for a specific file to save them in. I have Zotero papers on my hard drive because I like to save them all in one place. It's certainly up to you where you would like to add them, and you'll see that it comes in as Rome JSON. Now, the most important part is this title here, because whatever this title is, it's how it's going to import into Rome. That will be used as the Rome page title. So what I like to do is before I try to export is I go over to the site key, which is what we're going to be using for the page title. I copy it. Uh, sorry, clicked on the wrong thing. I click on export items to Rome. I change this. I just paste in the site key into that, which will become the page title, and click on save. You'll see we already have this one in here because we've already done this, but you just click save, and then that file is in your folder. And then what you can do is just go back to your Rome, click on import files, choose the files that you want to import. These will all be in your Zotero papers, which, gosh, I've forgotten where they are. There they are. And then just double click on it. Let's see, it's this one. And it will just say that is the new page name that you're going to use. And you just import the file. Okay, so that's how you're going to get your files in. I did not used to use site keys as page titles. And the reason that I did not used to use site keys as page titles is because the solution for referencing had not been found yet. And so using the site keys for page titles and even importing the metadata, which I used to hate, was very awkward for me because the process didn't carry all the way through to the end. But now we have a solution to exporting, then the site key as page title becomes very important, and the bibliographic data becomes important if you want it to be in your Rome. It's not so important to me, but perhaps it's important to you to have it all in your Rome. So that's the first thing you do to get it from Zotero into Rome. And then once it is in Rome, once your source is in Rome, let's see if we can find a source. So what you can see is once you have imported it, you'll see that what Rome did is it brought in all the information from Zotero that is tagged as metadata. This isn't my ideal way of setting it up in Rome, but for academic resources, it actually works well because it has consistency throughout the process. So for academic resources, this is the way that I keep it. Once you have your source into Rome, what you want to do immediately is run the source smart block. So you'll see the source smart block here. And once you run the source smart block, it will bring a few more fields in that are very important. So first and foremost is the source status. We're going to use this source status as we bring the source throughout the process of just being a the original collection right through until synthesis and writing and exporting. So this is a new source. And so every source that comes in will automatically be tagged as new. And that's so that you don't lose it, because you can always do a search for new sources and see when perhaps you brought in a source, but then you forgot about it, which is really important. Then you have space for the executive summary. We're going to talk about that later on when we talk about synthesizing. And then underneath, you have these two fields, which again become more important in the future. But you definitely want to run the source smart block. Okay? So, next, the daily notes page. So, in our process, once we've imported it from Rome and we've run the source smart block and the source is then in Rome, then we need to identify that source in our daily notes page. So this is how we work within the daily notes page. And I'm actually going to switch to a daily notes page that I created just for this. It's January 1st of this year. So you can see a sample of what a completed page might look like. So let's take a look. So here I am on January 1st. This is the Smart Block Daily Open. So all of these, if you use the Smart Block that I've provided for you here, all of these headers will automatically come up. And you'll see that I filled in the gratitude. There's the start time of my day. I have a few daily tasks. I should probably make that look like a task. And then the next thing I have is the daily journal. So what I would do every day during the day is I would enter the type of session that I am working in. So collect, curate, synthesize, or create, so that I understood how much work I was doing within each particular session. And then I would run the Smart Block POM underneath, which looks like this. And that will give you the time. It will give you a Pomodoro timer to start, and then you can actually put what you are working on at that period of time. So if you're working on reading through your daily reading list, that's fine. Before you start taking notes of any kind in any source, you should be sitting in front of Rome first and foremost, even if you're just reading it in a book, and you should enter it under your daily reading tab. Again, this using the daily notes page to this kind of detailed level ensures that you have a research journal that is solid and accurate, and it goes from the beginning, the first day of your research, right through until your end. So what you can see is I plan on reading these four, or actually technically I have read, if they're in my daily notes page, these four different sources. So when you're getting ready to read a source, enter it from its Zotero site key as its name into your daily reading tab. Okay. And then what you need to do then is, if you are reading it, go back into your source. And that's the wrong source, excuse me. Go back into the source that we've just opened. And then change the source status to source active. And that means that you are actually actively reading and taking notes on that source. And again, it just ensures that you don't ever lose the work that you're doing. Because if you ever want a quick review of things that you've read halfway or read partially, you just click on source active and it will bring up the list for you of every single source that you've started taking notes on and haven't finished. And I don't know about you guys, but I've started a bazillion journals, gotten halfway through and put them down to do something else and forgotten. So it's just a way of keeping you further organized. That's what this session is about, making sure we are completely organized. So what you do, everything happens from your daily notes page. So you record your deep work session here. You identify what you've about to read by using the site key as the title. And then you go into the source that you're about to read and you change the source status to active. And then what you will find is that you are at the end of this initial process. You're into collect.1.1. And that is going to be our next video.